Hello, my name is John Bueno Vesga. I am an associate professor at Penn State University, and I am here to present the results of our research entitled The Role of Cognitive Load and Engagement in Students' Adoption of an AI-supported VR training system. So you can read the names of my colleagues who work with me. They belong to the University of Missouri or to Emporia State University, but we are all part of the Technology to Enhance Learning Lab. Now, as you may be aware of, VR is intensively used in healthcare education. This is because it may bring a lot of realism and it can actually get good learning outputs. Now, lately, the use of virtual standardized patients that are empowered with AI is increasing. But developing these type of systems requires a hefty amount of money, and understanding what factors determine user adoption is crucial. So let me share with you what is the theoretical framework that led our research. So the technology acceptance model states that the behavioral intention of using a technology leads to the actual use of the technology. Now, the behavioral intention has two main factors, which are the perceived usefulness and the perceived ease of use. But the model also includes other variables, external variables. And then the task of researchers is to find which of those variables are the main drivers of the perceived usefulness and the perceived ease of use. In this research, we evaluated cognitive load, the different dimensions of cognitive load, in this case, mental demand, effort, and frustration. But we also measured or tested the effects of cognitive engagement. The leading research questions of this study were, what are the direct effects of engagement and cognitive load on perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use? How did students perceive these factors during interaction? And how did students perceive their intention to use the system? So a little bit of the context. Nursing students are trained on how to interview patients when they come to the examination room. It is important for them to collect as much information as possible about the patient. So these skills are practiced in universities by using something called standardized patients. So a standardized patient is mainly an actor, a person that pretends to be a patient, and that helps the train the nursing student. However, you may realize that these actors are not always available for practice, and also that they are expensive to maintain. For that reason, we created this examination room using Unity 3D. Now, we included an avatar in the room that was connected to an API called InWorld. This API allows or enables a conversational agent to have a conversation, real-time spoken interaction with the students. We included three main personalities. You can see in the screen, there is a menu with three patients. So one patient had an introverted personality, another one had an extroverted personality, and one more had a personality in between those two, which is an ambivert personality. This is to provide enough variety for the students in their training. We use a Meta Quest 2 headset for the experience. So we recruited 24 nursing students in a university in Midwest United States. And we use a mixed methods design. Now we use standardized instruments to measure the components of cognitive load, mental demand, effort, and frustration, to measure cognitive engagement, and to measure the components of the technology acceptance model, which is perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, and the behavioral intention to use the system. We also perform semi-structured interviews to get a deeper insight from the students. Now, our quantitative data allow us to confirm the assumptions of TAM, which is that the perceived ease of use is a driver of perceived usefulness, and that perceived usefulness is a driver or a factor of the behavioral intention to use the system. But beyond that, we also found that engagement and perceived ease of use were predictors of perceived usefulness. So they explain, a model including these two variables explain 30% of the variance. We also found, using this hierarchical linear regression analysis, that frustration and engagement were the main predictors of perceived ease of use, and they actually explain 50% of the variance of that variable. Now, we were expecting that frustration will negatively predict ease of use. But something that we did not expect is that frustration did not really reduce perceived usefulness. So we went and explored the qualitative data to find an explanation for that effect. So we found three main themes in the qualitative data after this qualitative analysis. The first one is that the realism increases engagement. So students express that the intervention was authentic, that the diversity of the characters or the patients was realistic and will bring a sense of agency and immersion. Some of them indeed mentioned that they did not even notice the time they spent in the experience. But something important is that they perceive frustration as a learning catalyst. So they found that these AI-empowered patients, sometimes they were very talkative, to the point that sometimes will even make them lose control of the conversation. However, this unpredictability in the behavior of these AI-empowered patients, although it was frustrating, it was seen as something similar to what happened with patients in real life. So they interpreted this frustration as realistic and professionally valuable. Something particular is that they found that this specific type of frustration, which we call productive struggle, could actually enhance their sense of engagement. Now, we also analyze their insight related to their intention to use this type of technology for their training. Now, the majority of them mention or express that they will reuse or recommend the system. Now, 9 of them mentioned that they will use it if the realism of the character in the facial expressions, body expressions, and even the way they talk will be more realistic. But also they will say that they will appreciate to have a larger diversity of patients that they could train with. Now, 3 of them, a minority of them, expressed that their preference to train with real-life patients instead of training with these AI-empowered VR patients. However, they saw that this VR training system will be good as a supplement and not as a replacement of a real-life experience. So we believe our research and the results of our research contributed to extend the technology acceptance model, incorporating one of the dimensions of cognitive load, which is frustration and engagement, to the model. But also we observe that frustration can coexist with engagement and not only coexist, but it can actually enhance engagement. This can happen, we observe, that when realism and professional relevance are included in the experience. Now, we introduce the concept of productive struggle, which is different from the concept known in game-based learning, like challenge and frustration. It is a different concept because in game-based learning, users use trial and error to overcome challenges. But in this case, the users embrace the challenge and take it as something productive for their learning. Now, we believe that other environments in which critical reasoning and systematic information gathering are important could benefit from this type of interventions. For example, in law, engineering, journalism, or business and education. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. This is my email. So feel free to contact us if you have any question. I kindly invite you to read our paper that is going to be published in the special issue of IEEE transactions on visualizations and computer graphics. Thank you very much.